Most people check their phone before they even get out of bed, before water, before sunlight, before a real thought. The hand moves almost automatically. Alarm stops, screen unlocks, notifications appear, messages, news, videos, noise. And the day begins before the mind is even awake. Some studies estimate that people check their phones dozens of times a day. For many, it can feel closer to 100. Not because every check matters, but because the brain has learned the pattern. A few empty seconds appear, and the hand reaches. So, what happens when that pattern is suddenly broken? What happens when, for one full day, there is no phone, no scrolling, no checking, no notifications, no escape? At first, it sounds peaceful, but the first thing you notice is not peace, it is discomfort. Because the phone was not only a tool, it was filling the empty spaces. And when it disappears, you finally feel those spaces again. The modern phone is not only something we use, it has become something we reach for before we decide to. Waiting in line, sitting alone, eating breakfast, walking through the house, standing at a bus stop, riding in an elevator, opening your eyes in the morning. The phone is there, not because something important happened, but because silence appeared. And silence now feels strange. The brain loves easy stimulation. A notification gives a small reward. A message gives a small reward. A new video gives a small reward. A new post gives a small reward. And over time, the brain begins to expect those rewards, not once a day, again and again. That is why the phone becomes automatic. You are not always choosing it. Sometimes your hand reaches before your mind catches up. And this is where the experiment begins. The phone is placed away. The screen goes dark. The drawer closes. And for the first time in a long time, nothing is waiting to be checked. The first hours without a phone can feel surprisingly loud. Not because the world is louder, but because the usual distraction is gone. You sit down, nothing happens. You wait, nothing happens. You look around, still nothing happens. And suddenly, ordinary moments feel uncomfortable. A coffee cup sits on the table, a clock moves slowly, a chair feels too still, a room feels too quiet. These moments were always there, but the phone covered them. It filled the small gaps between life, the boring gaps, the awkward gaps, the lonely gaps, the anxious gaps. Without the phone, those gaps return. And at first, the brain does not like it. It searches for the missing object. The hand checks the pocket. The eyes look for the screen. The mind waits for a notification that never comes. This is not weakness. This is habit. The brain is looking for the reward it expected. But this time, the reward does not arrive. Boredom used to be normal. People waited. They stared out windows. They watched the street. They sat with their thoughts. They noticed small things. A clock, a passing car, a stranger's conversation, the sound of rain, light moving across a wall. But now boredom is interrupted almost instantly. The moment nothing happens, the phone appears, so the brain becomes less practiced at stillness. A quiet room can start to feel uncomfortable. A waiting room can feel unbearable. A meal alone can feel strange. A short walk can feel empty. But the discomfort is not the enemy. It is information. It shows how much stimulation the mind has been using just to avoid silence. And once you notice that, the experiment changes. Because the question is no longer, can I survive without my phone? The real question becomes, what was I using the phone to avoid? After some time, something begins to shift. At first, the world feels too slow. Then it starts to feel more detailed. The sound of footsteps, leaves moving in the wind, light through a window, steam rising from coffee, people talking at a table, a street that was always there but rarely noticed. The mind slowly stops searching for the next digital hit. Attention begins to return to the real world, not all at once, slowly. The body relaxes. The eyes look outward. The hands become still. The silence becomes less threatening. This is the part most people do not expect. A phone-free day is not only about removing technology, it is about discovering how much of your attention was being pulled away. Every notification is a small interruption. Every quick check breaks the moment. Every scroll teaches the brain to leave the present. And when those interruptions stop, the present feels bigger. Without a phone, people become harder to ignore. A conversation feels different when there is no screen nearby. A coffee table feels different when no one is half-checking messages. A walk feels different when the mind is not waiting for vibration. Real connection needs attention. Not perfect attention, but present attention. The kind that says, I am here, I am listening, I am not half somewhere else. And this may be one of the biggest things the phone changes. Not only how we spend time alone, but how we spend time with others. Because a phone does not need to interrupt loudly. Sometimes just being visible is enough. It waits on the table. It glows in the corner. It reminds the brain that another world is always available. But when the phone is gone, the room becomes the room again. The person becomes the person again. The moment becomes complete. By the end of the day, something becomes clear. The problem was never the phone itself. The phone is useful. It connects people. It helps us work. It gives directions. It stores memories. It can save time. But the problem begins when the phone stops being a tool and becomes the place the mind escapes to automatically. The 24-hour break does not magically fix everything, but it reveals something important. It shows the invisible habit, the automatic reach, the discomfort with silence, the fear of boredom, the need to fill every empty second, and once you see the habit, you can choose differently. Not forever, not perfectly, but sometimes you can leave the phone in another room. You can drink coffee without checking. You can wait without scrolling. You can walk without headphones. You can let silence feel strange until it slowly becomes normal again. A phone-free day is not really about the phone. It is about attention, where it goes, who controls it, what steals it, what restores it. Maybe the mind does not need more stimulation. Maybe it needs more space, more silence, more boredom, more real moments that are not interrupted. Because when the phone disappears for a day, the world does not become empty. It becomes visible again. And maybe the real question is not, what happens when you stop using your phone? The real question is, how much of your life comes back when you finally stop checking?